you make this?
Feeling good, got some weed up in my wood, chasing dreams just like I should, letting go because I could. Used to have
All right, welcome back to another episode of JK Philly. Today we got Celtics Nation Rise. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing great. As great as I can be doing right now, with the Celtics getting eliminated. It kind of sucked. I was really hoping it sucks seeing the Pacers and obviously the Knicks right now in the Eastern Conference Finals. And it sucks because the Celtics could have been there and they had so much potential. But other than that, doing pretty good. Thank you for having me on the show.
I definitely appreciate you coming on. I just want to start it from the very, very beginning of the season. Of course, you guys just won the chip last year. You're coming into this year. Jason Tatum's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder from not winning the Finals MVP, plus, the whole fiasco with the Olympics and stuff like that. Where did you really see your guys' self in the beginning of the season, just the trajectory of, where you think you were going to head?
Well, I think from the beginning of the season, opening night, when we blew out the Knicks like that, or even as far to say before opening night, I thought this season was going to be 10 times better than last season. And that's saying a lot considering how picture perfect of a season we had the year before. But it was the fact of, like you said, Jason Tatum coming in with a chip on his shoulder, have something to prove, not winning Finals MVP, not winning Eastern Conference MVP. And on top of that, you look at it being benched in the Olympics and Jaylen Brown not being in the Olympics, having, some aggression towards that as well. And you look at all the factors that were kind of pulled into it. And you look at kind of the side of, all right, well, there's the aggression's there. But at the same time, you also look at it, Brad Stevens brought back the core team. I mean, you didn't bring back Svi Mykhailiuk, you didn't bring back O'Shea Brissett, and those were pretty much, I believe, the two guys that just weren't back. Obviously, you guys as Sixers fans, I know you guys are kind of hyped to get our boy Lonnie Walker. It's sad to kind of not keep him on the team, but at the same time, the Boston Celtics are coming back with their full team, minus Porzingis, who would come back later on in the season.
Yeah, no, you guys were you were my preseason favorites to go and win the whole thing. Obviously, I thought you guys were going to win the East. I thought you guys were going to win the East all the way up until Tatum was on the ground in pain. Even when the Knicks were up in that series, I still thought you guys would win it. And even during the regular season, I thought, even when I saw how good the Thunder were, I was like, the Thunder probably going to be in the finals, but I thought it was going to be the Celtics, no problem, breezing through the East. And like I said, even when they were down in the series, until Tatum went down, I stayed with that. Next year is going to be a bridge year without him. It's kind of going to suck, but I still expect you guys to be at least a third seed in the East. The East is just kind of weak.
Yeah, I do have to say, in addition to that, you said it right there, and I've been saying it on my podcast, Celtics Nation Rise / Celtics Talk Weekly. I've been saying it's going to be a bridge year for the Boston Celtics next year. You look at, obviously, I'm sure we'll get into it later in the show too, but about Tatum. But I saw the Celtics too, even from an NBA perspective, just even that, Celtics fan aside, I did see the Boston Celtics going back to back. It's just they kept the core team, and you look at it, they were so dominant last year. And yes, we could talk about injuries in the playoffs and stuff, but I really think any healthy squad with a healthy Celtics too, because we have to remember that we are missing Porzingis most of the playoffs, and that's when, obviously, we could talk about later, Porzingis had his fall off this playoffs, but he was doing good before that injury, in the playoffs last year. And then he obviously got injured too. So a full healthy Celtics, I don't think they lose to any team in that playoff that year before.
Yeah, for sure. I was kind of on the other side of the fence. I think the media really drove my thought process for what the Celtics were going to do this year. and where their ceiling would be this year. I think they obviously, of course, would have been a dominant team like they were throughout the regular season, finishing second overall. I figured they would finish around that spot anyway. Of course, the Cavs kind of came out of nowhere. But just how the way the season started, I'm just like, yeah, it's going to end up like that regardless, and they're going to make it, in a top 3 spot regardless. But just, really in terms of Jason Tatum throughout the year, it wasn't even really Jason Tatum. It was the Celtics overall that made me really question, are they going to be able to get back to the same spot that they were last year and show like how dominant they were? And the only reason why I say that is because kind of you kind of alluded to it when we were talking earlier, of just like their play style. They're shooting 40, 50 3-pointers a game, and they're going to die on that hill. If we don't hit those shots, we lose that game, and, we just need to shoot better next time. But that kind of influenced my decision of like, I don't know where the Celtics are going to end. Of course, I would assume they're probably going to end pretty high with, Derek White and also Peyton Pritchard, who are also getting a bunch of shots up and making a bunch of shots too. But it just was always making me a little bit hesitant. So I kind of want to know from your perspective in terms of the 3-point shots. Like, do you like that style of basketball?
That's a tough one because you said it right there too. When they're hitting threes, they're unbeatable. Like if they're on and they're hitting threes, no team is stopping the Boston Celtics. But they're gonna shoot threes, and they're gonna live and die by the 3 ball. So if they're not hitting the threes, they're gonna continue to shoot threes, and that's gonna drown that team. And you saw it in the playoffs. You saw it countless times where against the Knicks and even parts in the Magic series, I think they did a better job on switching up their game against the Magic. But against the Knicks, I mean, threes weren't falling, and the Boston Celtics kept shooting them. And I do like what you said, and obviously we get into that a little more, but it was kind of, you have to change it up. You really do. The Boston Celtics, you look at that Knicks series, and the Boston Celtics kept shooting threes, and I do like Joe Mazzulla. I think he's one of the funniest guys in the NBA. If you haven't watched the Joe Mazzulla interview, please go just go look up on TikTok. Go look up Joe Mazzulla funny moments, and you'll get a good laugh out of it. But I think he's funny. I think he's young, and I think he's full of potential. But man, he is stubborn with the 3 ball and not changing up the game, because at halftime, you see when they're drowning at the 3, they just come out and keep shooting threes. Like, change up your game. Get it in the paint or something. I mean, one of the biggest issues I had with the Boston Celtics is their effort on the glass. Like, they were not a good rebounding team as well. So it sucked. But I do want to add on to this too. I agree with what you said, because how high the ceiling was, because the Boston Celtics went into a slump halfway through the season.
Yeah.
And they were not, I would say, like kind of earlier in the season, in the months of December and January, where they were playing 500 basketball. And obviously a lot of teams would be grateful for 500 basketball, because they're like, oh yeah, like 500 basketball, that's great. But coming off a championship and the expectations we have as Celtics fans, knowing what team we have, you can't do that, especially if you're trying to go back to back, And I think, I look at that, could that be championship hangover? It 100% was. But yeah, but to answer your question though, the 3 ball, it irritates me. And that's why it makes the question, how long does Joe Mazzulla have in Boston? Yeah. Obviously, he just won a championship with the team, but it makes you scratch your head for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Because he's one of those, like you were saying, he's a very stubborn coach. He will live and die by his system. And those are the kind of coaches that fans turn on the quickest, because as soon as it starts to go downhill a little bit, they just act like the world's ending. I still think he's a very good coach. I like his approach. All the numbers. There are times where I think he's a little too stubborn, but all the numbers support, shoot threes, and now you got a ring on your finger, so it's hard to tell a guy to change. But it's why you get those weird Celtics games where it's like, oh, they're up 2-0 in a playoff series, and then you got to look at the scores. Like, does that say they're down 38 in Game 3? It's like, what is going on? And it's like you said, they live and die by that 3, and when it's hitting, it can get ugly for the other team. And then when it's not dropping, it's like, damn, it can get really ugly for the Celtics really fast.
Yeah, and I definitely felt like it was a little bit. I don't want to say the word expose Joe Mazzulla, but it was just kind of just like, here's what I am, basically. Like take it or leave it. And the Celtics do have to make a decision about that eventually. With I've been hearing a lot on social media about like the second apron and people getting paid, and people are gonna have to get let go, and stuff like that, trades that are gonna happen. I don't see how this team is going to really stay like core together. But I'm kind of just curious in your point of view. I know you probably don't want to get rid of anybody really on that roster, but just like your thoughts and perspective on it.
Oh, it's definitely a touchy subject for sure, because it's one where during my program on Celtics Nation Rise, I refused to talk about it like the whole season. Like,
Yeah.
we had this conversation and I was like, I will not talk about this till the season's over.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm like, all right, if we win a championship, I bet they will be willing to pay that price in order to go, run it back to back
Right.
3 times.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you look at it, they lost, and the Boston Celtics, if you guys don't know, have already sold their team to Bill Chisholm. But there is some interesting news. The Boston Celtics, I don't know his name, but just got an investor who just invested $1 billion into the Boston Celtics.
Wow.
But you guys, like, you hear all the rumors, and I think it's safe to say, as you gotta look at it from obviously the media aspect too. The Boston Celtics could very much so come back to back and have their whole team. Like in a crazy world, they could come back with Porzingis and Holiday. I think that's kind of weird, but like it could totally happen, especially with this $1 billion investment.
Yeah.
However, I do, and you see it everywhere. I think the names that are to say goodbye is Drew Holiday and Porzingis, which sucks because I love Porzingis. I love Holiday, those guys, and I think Holiday essentially won you that championship. I don't think the Boston Celtics win that championship. They don't win that championship without Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
And Porzingis is iffy, but like Drew Holiday, they don't. It's just plain and simple. So you could kiss at least one of them goodbye. I think it's tough. It's tough, and you have to make some different moves. I think right now, and over at Celtics Nation Rise too, we're like trying to just pinpoint a bunch of trade rumors and stuff, and it's not even like, how can we even have a target right now, because like so many rumors are going around. I even saw today, I was looking even on NBC Sports Boston, a Giannis rumor. I'm like, come on, like what world are the Celtics in getting Giannis?
I can't imagine that.
Losing all the players in free agency. If you had to choose between Porzingis or Drew Holiday, I'm bringing back Drew Holiday every day of the week. While and I don't want to discredit anything KP gave to the run, because he was a huge part of it too. I just feel like it's easier to find big men to do a job than it is to find elite defensive perimeter defenders like a Drew Holiday, who can also give you a little bit of a scoring touch and moves the rock well. There's really not, if you're going to build the perfect role player for a championship team, it's going to come out looking something like Drew Holiday.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, and like you said too, Kev, I don't want to discredit Porzingis at all, because he's a phenomenal player, and I actually got the chance to meet him, and one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And he's a good city guy too for Boston. I mean, one of my favorite memories is going to a game last year, actually against the Sixers, which is funny, and just having him cheers his cup to the crowd, and, like his coffee, and just he loves Boston. I mean, when he had his face cut open, he was getting the fans all like in it. He was going, and stuff like that. So it's a guy you definitely want on the roster, which it sucks. But Drew Holiday, like you said too, he's a guy who essentially got you over that hump and won you the championship. And he, for the Boston Celtics, he hasn't been much of a scorer, but that's because he's like the 7th option on the team, maybe even 8th, Look at that. He could be the 7th or 8th option on this team. So they don't need him to score. But you put him on a team like, we'll just say the Hornets, or, he's going to score 20, 30 points a night still. Right. In Milwaukee, that's what he was averaging. But his role with Boston is to pass the ball, score it, and score it a little bit, and play defense. Those are his main roles.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with the point. I do want to jump into talking about the Celtics Knicks series a little bit as well.
Of course.
Obviously, unfortunate situation. We are definitely talking to you way too early. Within the playoffs, it's what, May 30th. Way too early in the playoffs to be talking to you right now. I was assuming we were going to talk to you sometime in like mid-June at this point. It was very surprising to see how that played out, and very unfortunate to Jason Tatum as well. Like NBA teams and everything aside, like since Jason Tatum came into the league, that's been like one of my favorite draft class to just like pay attention to. So I'm definitely a fan of Jason Tatum when we're not talking about like Sixers and Celtics and everything like that. So it's very unfortunate to see that. But just give me your key takeaways throughout the series. Of course, we were talking about a little bit of the shooting, the defense, and Joe Mazzulla and everything like that. So just give me a little bit of your thought process from that.
So I'll give my Jason Tatum take after, but for the Boston Celtics in that series, it's clear the Knicks wanted it more. I mean, you look at that series and like it came down to who wanted it more. And it seemed from the get-go the Knicks were shooting shots. The Celtics were terrible on the glass, and I emphasize this the most going into playoffs. And I think I even said this on our rival showdown, like over on Celtics Nation Rise. I said the Boston Celtics need to be able to keep their foot on the gas pedal. And they were creating bad habits at the end of the season, and they were up by like 30 points, and then they would blow it. And one notable game I look back at is that Utah Jazz game where the Boston Celtics were up by, it was a good amount, and they almost blew it at the end. They were able to come out of it, but they almost blew it.
Yeah.
So you look at that Knicks series, and the Boston Celtics, the first two games, the two games that they lost, it should have been a win. They were up by 20 going into the fourth quarter, and they blew it. They did not keep their foot on the gas pedal. It was lack of defense, and it was lack of shot making. And you saw that again against OKC early, kind of in the middle of the season. The Boston Celtics were up by like 20 something. And then you look later into that game, and they only had 15 points in the like third quarter or something like that.
Yeah.
Same with the Cavs. You faced the Cavs in regular season. They were up 25 in the first quarter, and then you were going up 25 later in that game too, and you blew it. So it was just a fact of not keeping their foot on the gas pedal. And I think that was the downfall. And it was not keeping their foot on the gas pedal, having no effort on the defensive side of the ball, no effort, on the paint. I have a question for you too. And then I'll give my take. What was your initial thought? Like, I don't know if you watched the game live, but about Jason Tatum, because that's news that I think affected the whole NBA.
I mean, specifically with that news, like I was stating, like Jason Tatum is one of those guys, and he just, of course in the media world, he doesn't get the love that he probably deserves within the media, but regardless, that's a side point. It's unfortunate because we were just recording a regular Sixers episode, and we're talking about, the draft order and how the Mavs got it. And now we're like, okay, Cooper Flag is going to the West, and, the West is now even more stacked. So what can we do in the East when Jason Tatum just got hurt? Giannis is talking about, or Giannis talks about him moving wherever, so who knows what's going to happen with that. Embiid still hurt, and then you got, Halliburton, Mitchell, and anybody else that's within the East that, are rising stars that can really do something next year. So it was unfortunate to see that news, and I really thought that, I think Kev said it a little bit earlier too, even though they went down, I still had the Celtics winning that series. I think it was just like the Celtics played like that game one all the way up until the very last game that they lost. They shot the shit out of the ball, and if it didn't fall, it didn't fall. And I think it was just, he never changed that up throughout the regular season to playoffs, and it kind of just showed of just like, yeah, they'll win it eventually because they're going to hit their shots like they do. But, Jason Tatum going out was a huge factor for that as well.
And I think you could say it too. It's the biggest what if. What if Tatum never got injured, because you look at it, obviously the Celtics were down when he had that injury. The Achilles tear, obviously, which is a deadly one for NBA players. It's one of the worst injuries you could have as an NBA player.
Right.
So, if not the worst, So, obviously, it's a what if, because he was at 40 something points and he was on a roll. So, it's the biggest what if. What could have happened? But it's the biggest what if for his career too.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to not look at the scary factor, because it scares me even. So I'm not trying to look at the scary side, but the Boston Celtics are going to be Jason Tatumless next year. Like, they're going to have Brown take over the role,
Right.
So it's definitely a scary thought. And you look at it and it's like, wow, like we obviously battling with injuries, and in that Knicks series, after we found out Jaylen Brown had a partially torn meniscus as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, KP has been battling with that upper respiratory infection for a while, and so he wasn't full strength. Obviously, Drew Holiday with that mallet finger, and also something else he had. But even Sam Hauser with that ankle injury. So we were injured Boston Celtics. But now the Boston Celtics, talking about even going into a bridge year, and that's just going to be because Jason Tatum isn't going to be there next year. We're not going to have Jason Tatum for a full season. And I love what you said. That really affects the NBA as a whole. Like, are people just going to be watching Western Conference games? Because there's going to be no competition in the East. I feel like there'll be a little bit, with Cleveland, obviously. Maybe the Sixers could be back up there. Obviously, we'll see with the rise of, the Knicks and the Pacers. But the Boston Celtics are going to be in a situation where we haven't seen in a while. Like, ever since that draft that you were talking about, the Boston Celtics had Jason Tatum. This is going to be the first season without Jason Tatum, and that's scary.
Yeah, no, it's I don't want to say welcome, but welcome, in terms of like our Joel Embiid and hearing that story every single year. But it's a part of the game at the end of the day, and it is scary to think about. Of course, Achilles is such a bad injury, and who knows who's going to bounce back from that. And not saying that Jason Tatum is not a good player. Obviously, he's one of the best in the league. But just in terms of when we saw that with KD, we knew regardless if KD was going to take a notch down when he came back from the Achilles, he's still going to be top 5. So talking about Jason Tatum, he's not going to fall off the face of the earth, but is he going to be at that superstar level that he's been for his whole career now when he comes back? So it is a big question mark. But yeah, I think we really covered a lot. I definitely appreciate your time. Definitely want to give you a second to take a breather, because I know you probably don't feel too hot, but
all good.
Yeah, definitely appreciate you for coming on. Like we stated a little bit beforehand, of course it's still Sixers, Celtics, and everything that's in between that. But we're still gonna of course be on each other's channel, I would hope, and get together throughout the season and stuff like that. So definitely appreciate you for coming on.
Yeah, I gotta say, this is what I've been holding up to for my Celtics account. Good luck facing Jason. Just some good luck for when he comes back. He'll still be as good. But I want to say a big thank you to you, too. Thank you for having me on your channel. And I do gotta say this. Like you said, we're going to be making content all, like, regular season. We're going to be doing rival showdowns. Maybe some I actually put you in my notes to talk to for this off season.
For sure.
So we're gonna have some content, so obviously make sure you subscribe to JK Philly. Gotta for that Phillies account.
Yep.
You guys are big NBA fans and want to see some good Celtics content, go over to Celtics Nation Rise and Celtics Talk Weekly, and we get it done over there. So I appreciate you again. Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely appreciate you, man. Make sure you guys check out the next video, leave a like and subscribe. We'll talk to you later. Thank you guys for watching another episode of JK Philly. Make sure you stay tuned by subscribing to the channel.